Failed the mission. I'll be erased by the system. On that day, I told Willow for the last time, you can still regret it. This is your final chance. She glanced disdainfully at the 10 young models I had deliberately pointed out. A few days later, she frantically looked for me after seeing news of me spitting blood online. But it was too late. I was done. Chapter 1. After 7 years of pursuing Willow, she was about to marry Makoto, who had just returned to the country. She looked at me coldly and handed me a check for 100 million, saying, as we agreed, this is your payment for being my stand-in. I ignored her because the system told me I had failed, and I would be out in 10 days. I was speechless. 100 million. Couldn't I enjoy it a bit longer before leaving? So I looked at the check on the table and smirked, asking the system, can't we salvage this? The system replied, no. Willow probably thought I couldn't let go. She pursed her lips and said, that's already plenty. Please don't disturb me and Makoto anymore. Fine. I quickly grabbed the check, thinking about how I had pretended for 7 years, being loving, considerate, and patient, only to have 10 days to enjoy it. How could I possibly spend that in 10 days? Whatever. 10 days were still 10 days. It could vanish in an instant. With that thought, I lowered my head to scroll through my phone. As I flipped through my contacts, she seemed to want to say something. George. Actually before she could finish, I had already dialed David. David, your company is nearby. Right. Arrange for 10 young models immediately. Are you out of your mind? Can your body handle it? Stop talking. I need 10 right now. Pay is negotiable. I've sent you my location. They need to arrive in 10 minutes. Willow. Oh, we broke up. Hurry up. 9.5 minutes left. After hanging up, I looked at the twisted expression on Willow's face and asked, what were you saying? Her face turned bright red, and after a moment, she finally managed, George, you're just trying to provoke me, right? I chuckled. Miss Lou, Boss Lou, why would I provoke you? I've lived a bland life. What's wrong with enjoying myself? Don't worry, I won't disturb you and Makoto. She was at a loss for words, and after a while, she resentfully said, you better remember your words. I nodded nonchalantly and waved at the 10 beauties just stepping out of the sports car. They greeted Willow and shyly called me, hello, brother. I was dizzy from the overwhelming attention, surrounded in a whirlwind of excitement. As I walked out with the girls, I paused at the door and looked back at the indignant Willow, saying, you can still regret this. This is your final chance. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she glanced at us and bit her lip. I don't need it. You should be careful. If you develop these bad habits, even 100 million won't last you a month. Don't come looking for me later, I replied. Don't worry, I keep my promises. A month. I only had 10 days left. Chapter 2. Turning away. I felt a heaviness in my chest for some reason. Was it just this body's reaction? I looked down to see a girl beside me reaching out her hand. Over the years, Willow and I had only each other. We had an agreement to keep our distance from the opposite sex outside work, but now, I took the girl's hand, one in each hand, behind me. I felt Willow's gaze piercing into our hands. Let's go. First, we'll exchange money at the bank, then I'll treat you all to a big meal. I smiled, gripping the girl's hand tightly. These days, I planned to do everything I couldn't do over the past 7 years. After exchanging the money into my name, I took the 10 models to the best restaurant in City A. We booked the whole place. I ordered all my favorite dishes. After eating, we visited various attractions, places I had missed over the years. Having spent 7 years in this world, there were many places I actually liked. At night, I took all 10 girls out to party, drinking and dancing together. The vibrant nightlife was my favorite. While enjoying myself, I suddenly thought I saw Willow's cold face in the crowd. Just as I was about to move closer to confirm, a paparazzo squeezed through, looking indignant, and asked, excuse me, are you Mr. George? Don't you care that Miss Lou might be heartbroken by your actions? Heartbroken? I waved my hand dismissively, saying, we've broken up. The paparazzi exchanged glances and continued, are you heartbroken because Miss Lou dumped you? Which drove you to drown your sorrows in drink? Heartbroken, drowning sorrows? I replied. What are you talking about? This is just my nature. I've wanted to do this for years. These past years have been stifling, and if you hadn't mentioned her, I'd almost forgotten about Willow. After 7 years, I ultimately failed to win her over. I never entered her heart. Why should these paparazzi rub salt in my wounds? Besides, I had no feelings for her. She was merely my target. She only claimed I was her choice when her parents opposed our relationship. She silently cried for me when I was in pain during work gatherings. She encouraged me when I felt lost and secretly contacted people to help me. Before she returned, she was just a silly girl who often questioned my love for her with tears. I had another target in the next world, an entire forest ahead. She meant nothing to me. What a buzzkill. A beautiful day ruined by them. I looked up where I had seen Willow and found nothing. I must have been mistaken. The paparazzi still wanted to ask, so I quickly signaled the 10 girls to leave. Before departing, I tossed out, "If you want to take pictures or write, fine, but can you stop bothering me? Don't ask so many questions." Then, feeling tipsy, I took the 10 girls back to the hotel. The front desk asked how many rooms I wanted. How many? Of course, just one. The presidential suite. Chapter 3. When I woke up the next day, the first thing I did was rush to the bathroom to throw up. I vomited violently. Oh no, I drank too much. While throwing up, I suddenly spat out blood. I quickly flushed the toilet, realizing too late. My stomach twisted in pain. Sitting on the floor, I bore the pain and asked the system what was happening. The system informed me that this body was about to die. It was normal. Oh, stomach cancer, I remembered now. I still had the medical report on my bedside table at home. I had told Willow about my illness, but coincidentally, that day, Makoto asked her out. Willow had looked at me coldly, even mocking. "Someone like you would get sick, George. You'd be better off dead." Well, it seemed her wish would come true. I was really going to die. It hurt so much. I was rolling on the floor. As I rolled, I suddenly caught sight of a huge screen outside, looping the wedding announcement. Miss Lou Willow will hold a grand wedding with Makoto in 9 days. It even showed their wedding photos. Makoto held Willow's hand, her face displaying a warmth I had never seen before. My stomach hurt even more. Everything hurt. I was about to die. "System, can I leave early? I can't take it anymore," I asked. The system replied that I couldn't. "Isn't there a fruit in the system shop called no pain, no gain? Exchange for that?" The system asked. "Are you sure? You need to have completed several world's tasks to earn the points for it." Exchange. I was in so much pain. The tasks in previous worlds were different. A few times were chaotic, and I had been seriously injured, but nothing compared to this pain. Okay, a red fruit appeared in my hand, and I reluctantly popped it into my mouth. It melted instantly and worked immediately. The excruciating pain that had almost killed me vanished in an instant. I lay on the floor, gasping, listening to the system's voice. The no pain, no gain fruit is effective only in this world. During this time, whether the host is hit by a car or whatever, there will be no pain perception, but bleeding and other phenomena will still occur. So, I would still break bones or spit blood, just without the pain. All right, I understood. After lying there for a while, the girls I had exhausted started waking up one by one. They came over to help me. After some tidying up, we began our day's agenda. Just as we reached the hotel front desk, we unexpectedly ran into Willow, who had come to the hotel with Makoto. What a coincidence. The front desk clearly announced, "Hello, Mr. George. Do you need to extend the suite you booked yesterday with these ladies?" Chapter 4. Extend. Why wouldn't I extend? This was the most expensive hotel in the city. I turned to let the front desk process the payment. I could feel Willow's gaze drilling into my back. I couldn't be blamed for this. I had come to the hotel first. She and Makoto came later. I hadn't intruded on their lives. The front desk quickly completed the transaction, and I walked past them with the 10 girls, not glancing at Willow even once. Chapter 5. My schedule was packed. I took the 10 girls to various scenic spots, indulging in food and drinks. Entertainment headlines, aside from Willow's wedding news, were all about me. Hashtag 10 beauties at my side. Hashtag George becomes James Bond. Hashtag George living his best life. They followed me around, and I didn't care. Online, there were mixed opinions, mostly negative, but I was indifferent since I was about to leave. Besides hiring 10 models, I also hired some bodyguards to ensure my plans went uninterrupted. I had only a few days. I was busy. 4 days. I ate, shopped, and partied at night, sometimes returning to the hotel and sometimes not. It was a blast. One evening, just as I was about to switch to another bar, Makoto blocked my way. "Is there something you need?" I asked directly. "Can we find a place to talk?" He said. "Just say it." "I'm in a hurry," I replied. "Busy." He seemed a bit angry but then calmed down to continue. "Aren't you just upset that I took your girlfriend? There's a saying, what's meant to be will be, and what's not meant to be shouldn't be forced. As a man, you should be able to let go. It's petty of you to seek revenge by flaunting your presence after the breakup, making Willow uncomfortable. Do you realize that?" I was dumbfounded. I actually laughed. I asked, "Why would I be upset? Besides, why does it matter to you if I am or not? What I do with the girls has nothing to do with you. And whether Willow feels uncomfortable or not, why would I care? If you call this revenge, I just find it funny." "Friend, you probably know nothing about revenge." I couldn't help but recall the last world's protagonist lying paralyzed in bed and burst into laughter. He instinctively took a step back, looking wary. I looked at his face. which resembled mine 7 parts out of 10. Willow had been with me for 7 years because of this face. Since we met, per our agreement, whenever we fought for life, she would call me Makoto, except the night before he returned. That night, she drank a lot, her eyes hazy yet serious as she buried her head in my chest, mumbling, "George, I love you so much." At that moment, I almost believed she truly loved me. Unfortunately, I still failed to take her place, and they were still getting married. I looked up at the billboard still towering in the city, announcing their wedding set for tomorrow. Turns out today was already the 9th day. Chapter 6. Suddenly, I felt a complex mix of emotions. A burning sensation coursed through my heart. It seemed the fruit not only dulled physical pain. A bunch of paparazzi followed me, and Makoto stood right in front of me. I smiled and said, "Don't look at me like that, groom. You're getting married tomorrow. Congratulations in advance." He frowned and opened his mouth to say something, but I waved him off. Truly. Then I left with the girls and bodyguards. Chapter 7. We continued to party, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unhappiness. It was all Makoto's fault for ruining my vibe. Sigh. I thought if I drank more, I could forget and feel happy again. So, I really tried to cheer up. Holding my glass, I laughed while looking at the 10 girls, who were also giggling like mad. The table was piled high with drinks, and I planned to indulge. "Let's mix these together and make a depth charge." I pointed to the colorful drinks on the table. The girls eagerly complied, mixing the vibrant concoctions. I picked up the final light purple liquid and downed it in one go. "Look at me. Impressive, right?" I said. The girls clapped in encouragement. Feeling emboldened, I grabbed another drink, about to down it when suddenly, ugh, a wave of metallic sweetness hit my throat, and I vomited a large mouthful of blood. "Are you okay, brother? Did you just throw up blood?" The nearby girls panicked. Cough, cough. I choked, waving my hand. No, let's keep drinking. I was just saying how awesome I am." I tried to drink again, but before I could, another large mouthful of blood erupted from me. This time, I spewed it right into my glass, turning the light purple drink red. I lost control, vomiting blood in gushing waves. The table became a bloody mess. "Brother, don't scare me." They were in a frenzy, and paparazzi were still snapping photos as the bar staff rushed over. I checked my phone for the time. It was already the 10th day, 12 a.m. At the same moment, the entertainment headlines erupted with a breaking notification. #George vomits blood late at night. Chapter 8. As I settled the bill and left with the girls, the crowd around us was suffocating. Fortunately, my bodyguards were numerous enough to clear a path. They later tried to follow me, but since I had been a racer in another world, I knew how to lose them. So, I ultimately escaped everyone and sat alone in my car in the wilderness. My phone buzzed incessantly, with notifications popping up. #George's personality change. #George's intentions behind blood vomiting on Willow's wedding day. #Willow and Makoto's wedding. One after another. It seemed endless. Countless people who had my contact information kept messaging and calling. There were various nasty comments under many accounts. "George, you're pathetic. Purposely causing a scene on their wedding day. Why don't you just die? They're meant for each other. If you're a stand-in, you should act like one. Do you understand?" I scanned through the comments and smiled helplessly. Even knowing these were just things from they still made me unhappy. I picked up my phone, ignoring the rest, and answered David's incoming call. "George, you." Before David could finish, I cut in. "David, I sent those girls home. The pay for these days should go into your company account as we agreed. Please check. Is now really the time for this?" David was almost furious. "What's going on? Didn't you say you'd have them with you to forget Willow and start anew? What's with this nonsense?" I gazed out the car window at the starry sky and said, "I didn't mean to. I had no idea I would end up vomiting blood." "They said that blood looked quite real," David remarked, then fell silent for a moment before saying, "You don't mean to say you really?" "Yeah, I'm about to die," I replied. "I can't believe this," David cursed, sounding worried. "With money, why aren't you getting treated? Where are you now? I'll come get you." I suddenly felt a wave of sadness and didn't want to talk anymore. "I don't want treatment." With that, I hung up the phone. Chapter 9. He called again, but I didn't pick up. I muted my phone. I lit a loo and took in the nearby scenery, quietly spending what would be my last moments in this world. The moonlight was like water. In the wilderness, I saw a long-tailed tit, soft like a ball of snow, lightly perched on a tree branch. Without thinking, I snapped a picture, instinctively wanting to send it to Willow. Habit is a terrifying thing. Back when we were together, Willow loved these cute little creatures. Every time she saw or touched one, she'd be over the moon. So, I developed the habit of sending her pictures of them. But as soon as I opened our chat, her message popped up. "George, you're pathetic. pretending to cough up blood just to disgust me and Makoto. Suddenly, a suffocating feeling surged within me, and yet, my car window was wide open. Forget it, I won't send it to her. I had forgotten we'd broken up. I hadn't changed the habits I'd developed while pursuing her. I exited the chat and posted the picture of the bird on my own social media platform. I captioned it, "A nimble little snowball." I had barely posted it before my account got flooded. "Ruining someone's wedding. George, that's a new low. Why aren't you dead yet? I'll be at your grave next year." Sigh. I really shouldn't have posted it. David's messages kept popping up, but I ignored them. Later, he just kept commenting on my post. "George, pick up the phone. Answer me now. If you don't respond, I'll leak the recording." And then there was a notification marked as a favorite from Willow. "I've always been marrying Makoto. I'm not your possession. If you truly love me, you'd let go. A good ex should act as if he were dead." Chapter 10. A trembling wave of bitterness spread from deep within me, making it hard to breathe. All I could do was keep scrolling on my phone with my shaking fingers. I deleted all of Willow's contacts and slumped against my seat. Notifications kept flooding in. People were saying all kinds of things, but I didn't bother to look anymore. What was this suffocating feeling that I couldn't quite put into words? Wasn't I supposed to be immune to pain after eating that no-pain fruit? Why did I still feel like this? I cursed and accused the system of giving me faulty goods. The system told me that while I indeed couldn't feel physical pain, certain emotional reactions were unavoidable. It said, "You're just too upset right now." I gritted my teeth and stayed silent. It didn't hurt, but it was unbearable. Her message kept echoing in my head. If I wasn't so weak, I'd show them what revenge really looks like. But there's no point. What good is it to say all this? I asked the system, "How long is this going to last?" The system replied, "Calm down. Host 6 or 7 hours, and you'll be fine. I'll set you up with a sweet romance in the next world." I scoffed. 6 or 7 hours because of this woman. Every extra minute is a loss. I'm done. Without waiting for the system to finish, I grabbed a knife from the drawer and ended it in one swift stroke. The system was stunned and said, "Host, why didn't you let me finish?" Outside, it had started to rain. The rain came down hard. I quietly listened to it, feeling the strength drain from my body. Ugh. A few mouthfuls of blood later, my vision blurred. A hollow feeling washed over me. As the system chimed, I felt myself start to float upward. My phone slid to the side. The last thing I saw on the screen was a series of exploding notifications. Hashtag David leaks George's phone recording. Hashtag George diagnosed with stomach cancer. Hashtag George's medical records exposed. The next moment, the screen flickered, and the phone vibrated violently. Willow's number flashed repeatedly. Chapter 11. Willow called me many times, but I had already left. The George of this world was dead, so I couldn't answer. After a few unanswered calls, her messages began flooding in. "George, what are you doing? Didn't we agree to leave each other alone? Pick up the phone. George, I'm seriously mad this time. Answer me. The recording online is fake, right? George, where are you?" Explosive headlines and entertainment news kept popping up. Hashtag George says he's not seeking treatment anymore. Hashtag George is dying. Hashtag David was tagging me like crazy online, demanding I respond. The 10 girls from before had been found. Reporters were chasing them, asking about me, but they hadn't said much yet. People online were digging up everything, where I'd been with them, how I got sick, the first and last time I went to the hospital. The internet was divided into two camps. One side claimed everything was a scripted act to ruin Willow and Makoto's wedding, while the other side said if that were true, it would be a clown move, because any lie would eventually be exposed. The argument was fierce. All over the platforms, they were replaying David's leaked recordings, my deleting everything related to Willow, unfollowing her, the scene of me coughing up blood at the bar, and finally, me smiling at Makoto and saying, "Groom, congratulations on your wedding. Sincerely." Chapter 12. The rain kept pouring harder. I floated above the city, looking down at its drenched streets, waiting for something. I didn't know what. I don't know how much time had passed, but soon people started arriving at the hill. Screech, the sound of brakes pierced the air, and Willow furiously slammed her car door shut. From far away, she shouted, "George." Her voice was angry but had a slight tremble. She walked toward my car in the rain. "George, I'm warning you." Before she could finish, someone behind her screamed, "Ah, what's that? Blood. Holy crap, there's so much blood, it's all over the place. We found this spot based on George's photos. Could it be? That car looks like George's. Oh my god." Willow froze for a second, then looked down and saw the pool of blood. It dripped from the door seam, snaking along with the rain, spreading across the ground. She stood there in shock, leaving bloody footprints in the eerie night as rainwater mixed with blood. I floated nearby, watching her face slowly turn pale, her hands trembling. She lifted her foot but hesitated to take another step. Her eyes locked on my car door. The reporters who had followed were braver. One of them stepped forward, gritting his teeth, and yanked open the driver's door. Chapter 13. Ah. The moment the door opened, the person let out a blood-curdling scream and stumbled backward, falling to the ground hard. I pitied him a little. The inside of the car was a gruesome sight. Before I left, I had made sure to go big. After all, if I had gone too soft, I'd just be left waiting weakly for the end. I didn't feel the pain, but the blood splattered everywhere. By the time they found me, it had already spilled outside. Inside and outside the car was a mess. Ugh. Oh my God. This is horrific. Quick, call the police. The scene was pure chaos. Willow stood there, frozen, drenched by the downpour, her lips pressed tightly together, her eyes red as she stared at my body. A few brave ones were taking photos. Click. The flash of a camera startled Willow back to reality. Get away. She screamed at them, pushing everyone away, standing protectively in front of my body, looking completely unhinged. Get away from him. Some of the people tried to say something, but after exchanging glances, they backed off. Once everyone had left, Willow stood there, staring at my body. George. She called my name. George. She reached out and pushed me. George, wake up. She kept shaking me, but my body just slumped lifelessly. She held me tightly, as if she wanted to bury herself in me. Blood and tears soaked into her dress, spreading in large patches as she cried out, her wails echoing across the hill. I floated above, watching her. What a bore. 7 years of chasing her, enduring her cold indifference countless times, and now she acts like this. What's the point? Chapter 14. The rain poured relentlessly as David arrived with the police. He stared at my body in disbelief. No. He rushed forward and shoved Willow to the ground. David and I were great friends. In this world, I lost my parents long ago, and when we first met, neither of us had the careers we do now. In the early days, we supported each other through the struggles. Even after we both built our own careers and lives, we stayed close. That's why, back then, I called David directly and asked him to find 10 girls for me. He didn't ask any questions and arranged it without hesitation. He roughly pushed Willow aside, glaring at her with disdain as he sneered. Aren't you the bride? Why aren't you busy preparing for your wedding? What are you doing here? You two broke up, didn't you? You're the one who told him to stop disgusting you and Makoto. So what? Now it's not disgusting anymore? You can't even let go of him. You're so pathetic. Enough with the act. Would George have ended up like this if it weren't for you? Get lost. What a joke. Remember, Willow, every anniversary of your wedding will now also be the anniversary of George's death. You'll carry a life on your conscience. Don't forget to light a candle for George while you're celebrating. Willow tried to speak, but David had already turned his attention to the police officers. The officers ignored the argument between them and went straight to inspect my body. Everything was pretty clear. After all, I was somewhat of a public figure, and this was my usual car. To prevent certain situations, I'd installed a 24-hour dual-camera dashcam, so they could see the inside of the car too. After checking the footage and conducting some other investigations, they basically ruled out foul play. Still, one of the people reviewing the dashcam footage muttered, he was really ruthless to himself. No hesitation at all. I felt a bit embarrassed hearing that. After all, I'd eaten the no-pain fruit, so I didn't feel anything, and I'd also had quite a bit to drink beforehand. So, luckily, I was a soul now, so I wasn't too bothered. But David's eyes turned red. He glared at Willow, who remained silent, and said angrily, George told me he didn't want to live anymore. Looking at the blood that had spread everywhere, David gritted his teeth and said, with this much blood, he must have been in so much pain. I was speechless. Bro, you're overthinking it. I just checked out early. Seeing you like this makes me feel guilty. I wanted to tell him that, but I remembered he couldn't see me. Sigh. Forget it. Chapter 15. After that, the authorities comforted David and asked both him and Willow to cooperate with the follow-up investigation. Since they'd mostly ruled out homicide, the process went fairly smoothly. Willow remained silent, her head bowed. I couldn't see her expression, but her fists were clenched so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. As soon as they left the police station, reporters swarmed them. Miss Liu, do you have any comment on George's death? Miss Liu, will your wedding with Makoto still take place today? Miss Liu, George's medical records have been leaked online. What do you have to say about him ending his life this way? The questions bombarded her, but her only response was silence. In the crowd, she was jostled and looked uncomfortable. She didn't say a word, only turned to David and asked, can you give him to me? David let out a cold laugh. You're not his wife. Why should I give him to you? You were the one who told him to leave. David's eyes were bloodshot as he spoke slowly and clearly. Now he's granted your wish. He won't bother you anymore. You should be happy, bride. Stop acting. Who are you performing for? It's unnecessary. With that, I saw him wipe his eyes and walk away, leaving Willow behind in the crowd. I watched David's retreating figure and sighed deeply. The rain had stopped, but the crowd kept growing. The internet had already exploded. Some of the media outlets who found my body alongside Willow had been live streaming at the time. Although they quickly turned off the cameras and their streams were taken down, plenty of people had already seen the scene. When the car door opened, that horrific sight had spread uncontrollably. Everyone knew I was dead, and that my death was gruesome, and that I died on Willow's wedding day. George has been confirmed dead. Reliable sources state it was a suicide, and the circumstances were tragic. George's medical records have been leaked. Experts say he could have been saved, maybe even lived longer. According to reliable sources, George received $1 billion breakup fee after his split with Willow. There was no issue with paying for treatment. Based on his phone call with David, it seems George didn't want to live. Before his death, George left everything to David. Online, public opinion exploded, and soon interviews with those 10 girls spread like wildfire. George wasn't like you think. He was pure-hearted. Nothing happened between us. They say we stayed in the same hotel room, but the suite was huge. We didn't do anything. I silently mouthed, "Shut up, you're making it sound like I couldn't do anything. I was sick, you hear me? What's wrong with your brains?" Luis, with teary eyes, said, "It was obvious George did it on purpose. The day he invited us over was the day he broke up with Willow. He didn't say it, but we all guessed he was trying to see if Miss Lou would stop him." Laura nodded and added, "That day, when we left, he said it was Willow's last chance." I was speechless. I jumped up, silently swearing, "You guessed right, but next time, stop guessing. Can't it be that I was really giving her one last chance?" She continued, "When George got drunk, he called out Miss Lou's name in his sleep. He must have loved Willow. Everyone knows it was Miss Lou who didn't want him anymore, but he still acted this way, taking all the blame on himself. We didn't know he was sick. He filled his days with so many things. We thought he was just trying to forget Miss Lou, but looking back now, he was clearly sick, still drinking. It must have hurt. Maybe he just didn't want to live anymore." By this point, I was beyond the capacity to even comment. Sure, I called out Willow's name, but in my dreams, I was pointing at her and cursing her. I was lucky to be a ghost now. If not, wouldn't this be a case of dying from social embarrassment? Chapter 16. It's ironic. When I was alive, countless people said it was my fault that Willow and I broke up. People cursed me, calling me a disgrace, saying I had no self-awareness, and that I deliberately tried to ruin Willow's wedding. But after I died, suddenly everyone started liking me. Some were even editing videos of me, creating tear-jerking montages. Now everyone was talking about how much I loved Willow. Everyone was mourning me. The outpouring of sympathy online was strangely unified. What a joke. I sat in Willow's car, watching her miserable face, wondering what she was thinking. Just now, her assistant Lisa had arrived with some people to get her out of the chaos. Now they were driving back. Lisa sat in the front seat and glanced at Willow in the back. "Miss Lou, where should we go? Every place is surrounded. The whole city is on edge." After a pause, Lisa hesitated. "And about Makoto?" She trailed off, not daring to continue. The car kept moving in circles through the city. Chapter 17. After circling the city 3 times, Willow suddenly said, "Stop the car." The driver immediately pulled over. "Get out," she ordered. The driver and Lisa exchanged glances before following her command and stepping out of the car. Willow moved to the driver's seat and started the engine. "Miss Lou." Lisa quickly rushed over, worried. "What are you doing?" "Wedding's cancelled," was all Willow said before driving off. I hitched a ride, sitting in the passenger seat, watching the scenery rush by. The streetlights flickered in and out, casting shadows on her face. I stared at her profile, unsure of what I felt. She drove to my old house. 723,521. That was the password. July 23rd. Her birthday. I hadn't been back here in days. The house was covered in a layer of dust. She turned on the lights and stood in the entryway, staring blankly at the photo of us hanging on the wall. "George." Her voice echoed in the empty house. There was no reply. Chapter 18. "George." She called again, as if I'd suddenly pop out and say, "Just kidding." Surprise. But of course, there was nothing. The only sound in the house was her own voice. She started rummaging through everything, overturning drawers and cabinets, as if desperately searching for something, leaving the entire place in disarray. I don't know how long she searched, but eventually, she found my old diagnosis report in the nightstand. Her hands trembled as she flipped through it. "This can't be real. George, you must be lying to me," she muttered to herself as she read, until she reached the final result. Stomach cancer. Mid-stage. Urgent hospitalization recommended. A single tear fell onto the date of the report. That was the day I went to see her. Her hand shook, and in the next moment, she ripped the report into shreds, tore it to pieces. As if doing so would make everything disappear, she stormed through the house, angry and frustrated, like a madwoman. Finally, she grabbed a bottle of alcohol from my fridge and started drinking. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, seeing a message from Lisa. Miss Lou, I got the dashcam footage from the police. I've sent it to your email. Please check it. A second later, another notification popped up, a new email. She opened it and clicked on the video. It showed the moments leading up to my death. Lisa had even added a note. Mr. George called David after taking a picture of the bird. He probably wanted to send it to you, but after seeing your message, he posted it online instead. Later, Mr. George seemed to have received another message from you, and he lost control, then grabbed the knife. Willow played the video over and over, watching the last few messages she had sent me. Suddenly, she laughed. George, was this your way of getting back at me? She laughed, tears streaming down her face. Well, you succeeded. Chapter 19. I was speechless. How could she think someone would use their life to get revenge? How stupid. I was just a failed attempt at winning her over. System, what do you think she means by that? I asked. I don't know. The system replied. I'm just a program. I don't understand your human emotions or these strange, tangled feelings. Fair enough. Suddenly, I remembered something and asked. System, why is my departure taking so long? The system replied, exasperated. You didn't let me finish explaining. You were supposed to stay in this world for 10 days, but you forced an early exit. Since your time wasn't up, you have to stick around a bit longer. The higher-ups said you were trying to exploit a bug, so they extended your stay. They also warned that if you pull a stunt like this again, next time you won't be floating, you'll stay trapped in your body until it rots. I thought about that scenario for a second. No, best not to think about it. I just watched Willow guzzle down alcohol, shaking my head. She drank until she was stumbling, then rushed to the bathroom to vomit. As she retched, her phone rang. It was Lisa. What is it? She answered. Miss Lou, I wouldn't have bothered you right now. But, Lisa hesitated. David's at the crematorium, getting ready to cremate Mr. George. Do you want to come by? Willow froze for a moment before responding. The address. After getting it from Lisa, she rushed to the crematorium. She arrived just as they were about to place me into the furnace. Watching this scene unfold felt strange to me. Wait. Willow rushed forward, trying to stop them. David turned around, anger flashing across his face. You've got some nerve showing up here. David snapped. Get the hell out. Willow looked like she was about to collapse. Her eyes were red as she pleaded. David, I just want to see him one last time. See him. David let out a bitter laugh. Don't tell me you haven't watched the dashcam footage. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have died like this. Willow, you want to see him? George wouldn't have wanted you anywhere near him. If he knew you were here for his cremation, he'd probably sit up out of pure rage. Get out. You killed the only brother I had. But Willow stood there, frozen in place. Seeing this, David marched over and slapped her hard. The slap was brutal. Blood dripped from Willow's mouth. Lisa arrived just in time to witness this and rushed over to stop him. David, you can't do that. It's illegal. Stop hitting her. Miss Lou is suffering too. Suffering? David laughed bitterly. If she knew what suffering was, where was that concern before? She was about to marry someone else. I bet she was hoping George would die. Ask her what her last message to him was. She said a good ex should be as good as dead. That's not how it is. Lisa tried to defend her, standing in between them. I don't know how to explain, but you can't hit a woman. Lisa's words were cut short by a slap from David as well. Lisa winced in pain, unable to speak. David used the moment to glare at Willow, who was staring blankly at my body. Why aren't you saying anything? David demanded. Can't speak, or do you need someone else to speak for you? Willow's lips were pressed into a tight line. She didn't say a word. Say something. David suddenly screamed, losing control. He looked utterly heartbroken. I suddenly felt overwhelmed with sadness. I wanted to tell him not to be so upset, to tell him I was okay, that I'd be moving on to another world soon. But no matter what I wanted to say, he couldn't hear me anymore. Willow's lips finally moved. After a long pause, she whispered, I'm sorry. Sorry. David laughed coldly. You're sorry. His laughter was harsh as he glared at Willow, then said viciously, if you're really sorry, then fine. You can join him. I'll let you see him one last time. Chapter 20. Willow finally lifted her head. Blood still trickled from the corner of her mouth, dripping onto her blood-stained dress, spreading across the fabric. She didn't say anything, just stood there. David was ready to mock her, but in the next instant, blood splattered. Miss Lou. Lisa rushed over, but it was too late. Willow acted quickly, doing the same thing I had. Doctor, call a doctor. Lisa had already wrestled the knife from Willow's hand and was trying to stop the bleeding while dialing 911, but Willow shoved her aside. She looked at David, who stood frozen in shock, and said, I want to see him one last time. David's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. I'll take that as a yes, Willow said, then slowly walked toward my body. She stood next to me, not speaking, just looking. Blood continued to flow, her face growing paler by the second. As the sound of the ambulance sirens echoed in the distance, David asked her one final question. Did you love him? Willow stared blankly at me, her lips pale from blood loss. I don't know, she replied. I just feel, she said, really sad. It feels like my heart is broken. David opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end, he stayed silent. Over here. This way, doctor. She's here. Lisa's voice called out from afar. Willow took one last look at my body, then whispered, I'm sorry, I'll be with you soon. She bent down, as if to kiss me one final time, but collapsed before she could reach me. Lisa and the medics arrived in a frenzy, rushing to get Willow into the ambulance. The sound of sirens grew louder as they took her away. David stood there, deep in thought, before finally shaking his head. So, are we going through with the cremation? One of the staff members asked, breaking the silence. David snapped out of his thoughts and nodded. All right then, the worker said as he began the procedure. I watched as my body was consumed by flames, turning into ash. I asked the system, do you think she loved me or not? Are you seriously catching feelings right now? The system teased, annoyed. I cursed back. Why do you always interpret it that way? I just want to know if she loved me. If she did, does that mean my mission is complete? Can I cash in my points? What are you dreaming about? The system replied, whether she loved you or not doesn't matter now. Host, I'm already selecting your next world. Once the time comes, we'll leave. The system tried to comfort me. Don't be sad over a heartless girl. The next world will be better. I promise. Fine. Pick a sweet one. I insisted. I don't think I can take much more. Got it. This system knows what to do. The system reassured me. All right. Prepare for world transition. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The system's countdown echoed in my ears. I watched the sun set slowly, casting a golden glow. I turned to David and softly said, goodbye. He seemed to sense something and looked in my direction. I gave one last wave. I hope everything goes well for him in this world. After being reborn, I finally decided to let Charlotte go. She was destined to shine on the stage, so I chose to hide abroad. She liked the prop master by her side, so I directly proposed to call off our engagement. In my previous life, I trapped her with a marriage contract that bound her for a lifetime. Until death, she never got to be openly together with Kevin, but it was only when I was lonely in the nursing home that I realized I had also been trapped for a lifetime. Chapter 1. After being reborn, the first thing I did was submit the application form that had been lying on my computer for a long time. The moment I saw the acceptance letter, I felt like I was living in another world. My mentor, who had been advising me all along, was pleased and said, I previously encouraged you to pursue a PhD abroad. You said you couldn't go because your fiancé was working in North City, but now you've finally come to terms with it. Speaking of Charlotte, she was truly a gifted young woman. She came from a well-off family and had already achieved some success in her career at a young age. She was somewhat famous in the industry and was currently on an upward trajectory. As for me, apart from having good grades, I wasn't remarkable in any other aspect. If it weren't for the agreement our parents made when we were young, Charlotte and I would never have connected. My eyes were firm as I said, Professor, this time I want to try to follow my own path. My mentor patted me and said, pursuing a PhD is long and lonely. You need to be mentally prepared. Even though it's long, it's not as long as my previous life. In my last life, I gave up the opportunity to pursue a PhD abroad. The Chan family was urging us to get married. Just a month after our marriage, she became pregnant. She didn't want to have the baby, saying it would affect her acting career. But I was so desperate to have a family that I took on all the major and minor household matters myself. From then on, I was trapped in family trivialities. Meanwhile, Charlotte felt her mission was accomplished and rarely returned home. She was busy with performances and rehearsals. Her fame was growing, and she was constantly traveling for work, but wherever she went, Kevin always stayed by her side as the prop master. Besides work, he also took care of her daily life. As for me, I was stuck with the Chan family, raising the child and taking care of the elderly. Our son grew up in a single-parent household, and I always felt he was very attached to me, until I saw him getting engaged to Kevin's niece. In the private room, he acted without any reservations, picking up his teacup and smiling broadly as he called out, Dad, would you like some tea? A month later, he confessed to me, his tone completely indifferent. He said, Dad, Mom is a career-oriented woman. You, as a stay-at-home father, have already bound her for a lifetime. That's enough. He continued, men who reach your level are really pathetic. Mom has already given you face. You can't be so greedy and want everything. He felt that only Charlotte was bound by the marriage contract. As for me, I deserved to be a victim of family life. But why? When we were young, I asked for her consent. She agreed to the arranged marriage set by our elders. Because of that, I gave up my career and my dreams. She worked hard to build her career, while I tirelessly took care of the elderly. She was busy with performances and rehearsals, and I had to manage 3 meals a day for the whole family. At the toughest times, I was holding my son in one hand and a medical appointment slip in the other. I was running up and down alone, arranging doctor visits, buying medicine, and making payments for the elderly. By the age of 50, Charlotte's career was soaring, and she was achieving great success. Meanwhile, my social circle was shrinking, and life had me firmly trapped. At this point, everyone said I wasn't good enough for her. Everyone advised me to let go, and even my son, whom I raised single-handedly, felt that Kevin should be the one by her side, but I refused. In the last encounter with my son, we parted on bad terms. He left me standing on the street. As I slowly collapsed, watching his retreating figure, I felt immense regret. If I could do it all over again, I absolutely would never give up my own life. Chapter 2. Back to the present. After returning to the apartment, I put away the acceptance letter and turned to the kitchen to bake a tray of egg tarts. This apartment belongs to the Chan family. To accommodate my studies, Charlotte Chan and I live together here. On the calendar in the living room, I drew a big red circle. In half a month, I can leave here and live the life I've always wanted. Just after finishing the drawing, Charlotte came back. When the door opened, there were 2 figures behind her, a taller one and a smaller one, Kevin and his niece. Seeing me come to open the door, Kevin gave a seemingly cheerful smile. "Joel, Charlotte asked me to come upstairs and sit, adding another bit of trouble for you." The little girl was a regular visitor. Sensing the sweet aroma in the air, she eagerly ran into the kitchen and took desserts from the tray herself. 6 egg tarts, 2 each. They divided them happily, but there were none for me. When I came out of the kitchen, the 3 heads crowded towards me, chatting and laughing. Upon tasting an egg tart, the 3 of them simultaneously spat it out. "Uncle, it's so bitter." I stood still as Charlotte busily moved about. One moment she was serving water, the next she was passing tea. Finally, Kevin forced a smile and left the door. The dimples that usually appeared on his cheeks were gone this time. His words, however, remained forgiving and magnanimous. "Charlotte, Joel's cooking still has room for improvement. You two must not argue." Charlotte silently sent them out the door. When she returned, I turned around and brought out another tray of egg tarts. Charlotte hesitated before explaining. "Ava is the orphan of my sister. Before she died, she repeatedly urged me to take good care of Kevin. I let the child taste your delicious desserts." I still remained silent. She dryly added, "If you mind so much, I will call them less often in the future." The next day, early in the morning, I went to pack my luggage, preparing to go to City C in a couple of days. Since I had decided to call off the engagement, I needed to speak clearly early on, out of respect and to avoid any future entanglements. While packing, I saw a mud doll. It was the one Charlotte gave me when I was a child. Back then, she was firm in her words, and her chubby hands were full of mud spots. "Joel, Mom said you'll be my husband when you grow up, so this is for you." The doll ended up in my suitcase. No longer needed the doll. No longer needed her. I got up and drew a big cross on the calendar in the living room. 14 days left, and I will leave here. That night, Charlotte came back very late. She looked at the food on the table as if nothing was wrong. I ate before coming back. A woman who steals food doesn't even know to wipe her mouth. After the last time, she knew that bringing Kevin back would make me angry, so she simply ate outside. Fortunately, I didn't cook her a meal either. After dinner, back in the room, I began to organize documents, making final preparations before school. Charlotte silently appeared behind me. I closed the laptop with my hand. "What's wrong?" She was silent for a moment before saying, "The wedding planners and hotel people have contacted me. Can we set the date on September 1st? What a good date choice. Coinciding with my first day of school. I looked up directly at Charlotte, and 3 seconds later, she silently avoided my gaze. In my previous life, she handled the matters between me and him as if dealing with business affairs, dating, marriage, having children, supporting the family. From outsiders' perspectives, she did everything extremely well, but only I could feel her aloofness and coldness. It wasn't until before her death that I realized belatedly, probably, she was dissatisfied with this marriage from the beginning. But in the end, only I withered away in this marriage. So I asked her, "Charlotte, have you decided?" She was stunned, not expecting me to ask like this. Then I heard the exact same answer as in my last life. She said, "Joel, you are the only husband I acknowledge." This time, I didn't hesitate. I said, "Marriage is a big matter. We need to discuss it with our parents. The date isn't urgent. Let's wait a bit longer." She felt relieved and smiled, changing the topic. "Still reading English literature so late? Don't get too tired." That was my enrollment assignment. In this life, I want to choose the path I didn't choose. I want to see how exciting Joel can live without Charlotte. On the third day, Charlotte woke up early. When I got up, there was a bowl of crab roe buns from Nanching on the table. They were my favorite. It was rare for her to try to please me, so I patiently awaited her move. Sure enough, Charlotte hesitated before speaking. Joel, I can't accompany you to your parents' house this time. Ava is sick, and Kevin can't manage on his own. Only then did I start eating. I hadn't yet figured out an excuse to prevent her from coming with me. Now it was perfect, a win-win situation for both of us. Seeing me nod in agreement, Charlotte hurriedly left the house. I glanced at the calendar on the wall. There were 13 days left. Today was the day to call off the engagement. The Chan parents were kind to me, but breaking off the engagement wasn't difficult. I just needed to tell them that Charlotte had a bright future and was about to soar to great heights. As for her and me, we were no longer compatible. Chapter 3. The living room of the Chan household was silent and oppressive. I sat aside, silently twirling the teacup in my hand. A mess. Chan opened her mouth several times, only to swallow her words back. Over the past few years, I had heard quite a bit about Kevin. After holding back her words for a long time, she finally said, even if she has feelings for Kevin, you two are still engaged. If she dares to back out, I'll deal with her. Mr. Chan was the final authority. Since you've decided to call off the engagement, we respect your decision. But Joel, the relationship between our two families won't change. We still consider you our closest junior. Charlotte was now the apple of everyone's eye, so even her biological parents couldn't understand why I insisted on calling off the engagement. But I understood that regarding this arranged marriage, they probably had some hidden expectations. Now that I took the initiative to end it, it was somewhat considerate. This was good for my future life. Regarding Charlotte and the Chan family, I no longer wanted any entanglements. After all, in the end, they were still family. Engagement terminated. To prevent any complications, I lied to them, saying that Charlotte was too busy and that she had asked me to return alone. After hearing this, Ms. Chan felt a bit guilty towards me. She advised me to stay at their house for a while before leaving. Coincidentally, I didn't want to go back to that small apartment and live in constant proximity with Charlotte day and night. I stayed at the Chan household for 10 days. During these 10 days, Charlotte only made one phone call. After learning that I was staying with the Chans, she never called again. She was still the same as before. Regarding our relationship, she maintained a businesslike demeanor. No concern, no loss of composure. Upon returning, the first thing I did was mark 10 big red crosses on the calendar. 4 days left. Only 4 days remained. I was carrying my luggage back home when I heard the door open. Charlotte stood outside the door, followed closely by Kevin and Ava. You're back. Charlotte looked a bit surprised when she saw me. Kevin and Ava actually turned and entered my room. I frowned as I saw him naturally close the door to my room. The living room was a mess. Upon closer inspection, it was filled with my belongings. I looked at Charlotte. A hint of embarrassment flashed across her face. Kevin's house had a leak due to heavy rain a couple of days ago, so he's staying here temporarily for 2 days. I saw you weren't home and you didn't have much stuff, so I let him stay in your room for now. I hadn't even told her about calling off the engagement yet. The two of them were truly unabashed, facing my piercing gaze. Charlotte generously said, you can move into my room first and sleep in my bedroom temporarily. As Charlotte spoke, she opened the door to her room. Oh, by the way, where are the books from your room? Why are there so few things? Of course, they were moved out. I sold them. I thought I wouldn't need them after marriage, I explained. Charlotte frowned. Even after marriage, you might still need them. Self-improvement is important at any time. Anyway, if you want to sell them, go ahead. She knew everything from the start, but she didn't care. She watched me being consumed by that family. As a beneficiary of their interests, Charlotte was content and at ease, but she couldn't and shouldn't be. While enjoying my efforts, she was also distracted by Kevin. I pressed my lips together and remained silent. Seeing my continued silence, she finally said, by the way, what did your parents say? Charlotte took the bag from my hand as well. I paused. I did some calculations. The timing isn't right. We can talk about it later. There were still 4 days left. I used this excuse to buy some time. When I left, I would explain everything clearly to her. Charlotte sighed with relief, then put on a concealed smile. She looked at the calendar in the living room. Looks like we need to find another good date again. After saying that, she rushed to the kitchen to cook. She didn't even notice what I had marked on the calendar. I looked at Charlotte's household registration book on the desk by the window. When I came to my senses and wanted to help, I heard the faint voices of 3 people outside. A man with a deep voice, a charming woman, and an adorable child. I silently sat down again. In reality, having already called off the engagement, living together was inappropriate. especially sharing the same room, but with only 4 days left, I couldn't find a suitable rental outside. After thinking it over, it seemed I could only eat a meal and then set up a temporary sleeping arrangement in the living room before bed. Chapter 4. Early the next morning, still half asleep, Ava was causing a loud commotion in the living room. Kevin not only ignored it but was also making clanging noises in the kitchen. Charlotte simply sat on the sofa, smiling as she watched the two of them. Perhaps this was the image of a happy family she had in her mind. I used the excuse of buying groceries and hurriedly left the house. As soon as I stepped outside, I took a deep breath. Why did Joel come back? Didn't you say you were going to visit your in-laws? My neighbor Susan saw me leave and approached me. Her words were filled with good-natured teasing. Not your in-laws. Susan was taken aback for a moment, then laughed, thinking I was indulging Charlotte's reputation. Yes, still not your in-laws. We always have to wait until we're married to change that. She noticed my expression had lost its usual smile. Susan hesitated, then couldn't hold back any longer. She began to reprimand me in a low voice. These past 2 days, when you weren't around, Charlotte brought men home. I asked her once, and she actually said it was with your permission. That man looks restless. Did you really nod to that? The wedding isn't even done yet. Silly child, be more careful. With Charlotte's qualifications, if she hadn't been engaged to you, I guarantee I would have introduced my nephew to her. Who wouldn't be attracted? Men are flocking one after another. You need to be sharp, even if men were approaching one after another. Only Kevin stood by Charlotte's side. She didn't need to worry because Charlotte would always back him up. What I didn't expect was that Charlotte outwardly claimed it was my decision. She was careful not to let any taint touch Kevin. She had indeed put in a lot of effort, but some things, I still couldn't speak about them now. Susan saw that I was soft-hearted, pouted, and finally kept advising me to be more cautious at home. When I returned, the living room was empty. However, I could hear rustling sounds coming from my basement. After a while, Ava bounced up to the room. She was holding a tattered piece of drawing paper. I squinted to see. It was a portrait I drew of Charlotte last New Year's Day. The woman in the painting still had cold eyes, but her mouth held a faint smile. The room was warm like spring, and fireworks illuminated the outside. During those few hours, Charlotte's eyes were only for me. I always thought that after marriage, we would spend many days and nights repeating such simple happiness, but I never expected that it was her only time to look at me seriously. The drawing in Ava's hand was already torn and tattered. There were sticky sugar stains on the paper. Behind her, Kevin had followed up. Kids don't understand. Joel, you won't hold it against the child, will you? His tone was gentle, but the pride and contempt in the corners of his eyes were clear. Since you know they don't understand, educate them more. It seemed he didn't expect me to retort, and Kevin was momentarily stunned. Kids understand the atmosphere the best, and Ava suddenly rushed forward. Her dirty little hand slapped mine, leaving a black handprint on my shirt. You can't bully my uncle. The little girl's voice was sharp and piercing. Charlotte rushed in from outside the door. She grabbed Ava and pulled her into her arms. I didn't look at her. My gaze shifted to the fallen drawing paper. Charlotte followed my line of sight and was momentarily stunned. She clearly understood something. She wanted to say something but swallowed her words back. Kevin looked even more pleased, his face showing a facade of grievance. Charlotte, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for not keeping a better eye on Ava. At that moment, my laughter erupted abruptly. All 3 pairs of eyes turned to look at me at the same time. I picked up the drawing, held it up to the light, and said, I didn't draw it right. The lighting in the house wasn't this bright. After saying that, I threw the drawing into the trash can and walked into the kitchen with a blank expression. Charlotte suddenly looked up, staring blankly at my retreating figure, unable to attend to Ava's continued crying and fussing. Charlotte followed me into the kitchen. She hesitated for a long moment before awkwardly opening her mouth. These past 2 days, I've been busy looking for a place. In a couple of days, Kevin will move out with Ava. I know you don't like him. Can you just bear with it a little longer? Without much thought, I replied, sure. After all, there were still 3 days left before I had to leave. It was originally the Chan family's house. By then, how they would manage their lives behind closed doors in this house wouldn't concern me anymore. I had agreed too quickly, and Charlotte struggled to speak, her face turning pale and green, looking very uncomfortable. She thought I was angry about what just happened inside, pulling me back. Ava is still a child. I've told you many times. I take care of them only because of my sister's request. Kevin isn't easy either. Can't you stop thinking of people as so despicable? I sneered. So, you brought him back and even told others it was my idea. Charlotte's breath caught, and she opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. I laughed. See, no matter how eloquent her words were, the inner turmoil and sordid thoughts couldn't deceive anyone. Concerned about maintaining the elder's face, I didn't want to ruin her career, but it had to be this way. Chapter 5. Early the next morning, I woke up early. Ava's loud commotion from yesterday had lingered in my mind. There must still be some of my things in the basement of the house. Taking advantage of the fact that they hadn't woken up yet, I went down to the basement to pack my things. Living in this house for several years, even with over a dozen days of preparation in advance, I still had many items left behind. I packed meticulously. For the rest of my life, this lifetime, I no longer wanted to have any connection with Charlotte. Since I had decided to leave, I wanted to leave completely. Finally, I organized everything into 3 large bags. As soon as I opened the door, I saw that Charlotte had already prepared breakfast. Seeing the things I was holding, Charlotte was stunned. "Where are you taking those things?" My tone was indifferent. "Throwing them away. There are too many useless items." Charlotte glanced at them and then looked away, turning to knock on the door of the room next door. "Kevin, take Ava and get up. Breakfast is ready, on the dining table." As soon as Ava saw me, she snorted and moved her breakfast closer to herself and Kevin. Charlotte brought out a fried egg and smiled at me. "You're up. Come here. I made a fried egg for you." Turning her head to see the items in front of Ava and Kevin, she awkwardly smiled. "Good girl Ava. Can you share some with Uncle Joel?" I ignored the group and left the house directly. There were only a few days left before the semester started. All the necessary procedures had been prepared. I planned to exchange some petty foreign currency again. Additionally, I wanted to see what else I needed to buy. Once everything was settled, I booked a room at a hotel, although there were only 2 days left. Seeing Charlotte every day with my head down and her looking up was really unsettling. Since she thought I was jealous of Kevin, I decided to let her maintain that misunderstanding and use it as an excuse to move out. Once everything was in order, I returned home, but I saw Ava playing with my passport in her hands. My head buzzed. "What are you doing?" I snatched the passport back, startling Ava, who fell off the table. Her heart-wrenching cries drew Kevin from another room. "What are you doing? Who told you to bully Ava?" Kevin pushed me away, tenderly picking up the child. I was trembling with anger, carefully placing the passport back into my bag. "Am I bullying her? Don't you see what she did? Who told you to touch my things? Get out." Kevin stood up holding the child, looking coldly at me. "Ha, you haven't even married Charlotte yet. This isn't your place to decide." He walked to the door with the child in his arms, paused for a moment, then turned back. "Even if you did get married, you couldn't compete with me." With a loud bang, the door was closed. Kevin's hostility towards me always surfaced when Charlotte wasn't around. In the past, I always kept retreating when facing him. He traveled extensively with Charlotte, gradually becoming capable on his own. Everyone said they were the perfect partners. In comparison, I was just a stay-at-home father. Much inferior, but with a second chance at life, I felt suddenly relieved. He might be excellent, but I had my own strengths. Why should Kevin and I be placed on opposite ends of the scale? Because of Charlotte, who wasn't worth it. Besides Charlotte, did I have nothing else in life? I could continue my studies, contributing to the relentless pursuit of medical excellence for humanity. I could go out, broaden my horizons, and gain more knowledge. This quagmire here would only hinder my progress. As for Kevin, when I first returned, I had considered taking revenge on him. In my past life, he made my marriage nominally exist. I thought about causing trouble at their theater or exposing him online, but what good would it do? As long as Charlotte wanted, she had 100 ways to continue taking care of Kevin. Moreover, if Charlotte wasn't interested, even if Kevin stood before her naked, she wouldn't give him a glance. Why bother? It was just a misguided love. I didn't want to waste my life dealing with it anymore. So I spoke firmly to Kevin. "Listen, no matter what your relationship with Charlotte is, whether you admit it or not, it has nothing to do with me anymore. I'm not going to marry her. If you understand what I'm saying, you should focus more on Charlotte instead of provoking me. Otherwise, I might change my mind at any time." Kevin was stunned. He waved his hand, trying to deny it, as if he was afraid of genuinely angering me. Finally, he reluctantly went back to his room. I packed my things, took one last look at the apartment. Looking around, there were traces of other men who had lived here. Nothing to be attached to. I turned around and left. Chapter 6. Back at the hotel, I quickly packed up and began composing a message to Charlotte, although she had treated me poorly in many ways. In this lifetime, up to this point, we didn't have any significant grievances. In our past life, we had mutually hindered each other, ending up in an unclear state. If possible, I still wanted to clarify things in this lifetime. In the message, I didn't mention where I was going. I simply told her that I had decided to continue pursuing my PhD in medicine. Regarding our engagement, she didn't want to marry me, and I didn't want to marry her either, so we would just let it go. From now on, we would each find our own happiness. Before I could send the message, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Charlotte standing outside. She looked out of breath, as if she had been running for a long time. "Why are you here?" She gasped a few breaths. I finally found you. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're okay. I remained silent, thinking she was about to accuse me again. All right, don't be angry. Come back with me. Charlotte squeezed in, trying to help me pack. I turned off my phone screen with my hands behind my back, but her gaze shifted and landed on my passport on the table. Charlotte's expression changed drastically. Where are you going? I was taken aback, frustrated that I hadn't packed my things properly. In the afternoon, Ava was rummaging through my things. I was afraid she would damage them, so I took them out. Seeing my composed demeanor, Charlotte sighed with relief. I need to keep them safe so we can use them during our honeymoon. She handed me the passport, instructing me to place it in my close-to-body bag. I complied without hesitation, then, pressing down on her hands as she tried to pack. Charlotte frowned. What? Are you still angry? Ava was wrong, but she's still a child. Stop causing a scene. I just find it odd. Ava has always been well-behaved, but every time you come back, you end up clashing with her. You. Charlotte wanted to say more, but seeing me look at her calmly, she suddenly stopped speaking. I only asked her one question. Does Kevin know you came to find me? Charlotte was somewhat annoyed. What does that have to do with him? Why are you always clinging to Kevin? I ignored her and continued. I guess he doesn't know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be standing here. I'm your fiancé. If we're fighting, it's natural for you to come find me. Then why? Subconsciously, don't you want to tell him? Why do you always unconsciously avoid anything related to me in front of him? Every time we argue, you say it's because of your sister that you take such good care of him. You have several sisters. Why aren't the others as attentive as you? Charlotte. I called her softly. Since you don't love me, just let me go. Charlotte's expression changed drastically, and her body seemed to sway slightly. After a while, she struggled to say, since you're not going back, then reflect on yourself here. I'll come back to pick you up in a few days. Charlotte turned around and fled in a disheveled state. I never intended to hurt you. I'm going back to prepare for the wedding. Listening to her stumbling footsteps fade away, I closed the door expressionlessly. It's so ridiculous. In her eyes, her willingness to prepare for the wedding, to marry me, was a great blessing. I should be deeply grateful. Chapter 7. After Charlotte left, I handled my check-in on my phone and then went out to have dinner with a close friend from school. After graduation, everyone went their separate ways, and by the time I returned, some people might be hard to see again. At the table, my closest friend hesitated before speaking. He knew some things about me and Charlotte. Joel, didn't you say you'd get married after graduation? Why are you going abroad to further your studies again? Long-distance relationships are a hurdle many couples can't overcome. I shook my head with a smile. I'm not getting married. Then I raised my glass. To youth, to friendship, to myself. So, cheers to youth, friendship, and myself. After returning home, I took an early shower and went to bed. I expected to toss and turn all night, but instead, I had a good night's sleep and woke up at dawn. Upon waking, I headed straight to the airport. Before boarding the plane, I sent the message I had been editing for a long time to Charlotte. After sending the message, my phone buzzed incessantly. I turned it off immediately. As the plane ascended, I felt a lightness in my body. In a daze, it was as if I saw my past self saying, thank you, when the plane landed and I truly set foot on foreign soil. I suddenly felt like crying. In my past life, I could never take this step, but now it was so easy. As long as I wanted to, I composed myself and went to register at the school. In my previous life, I never had the chance to set foot on a university campus. This time, I cherished the opportunity dearly. Besides eating and sleeping, I spent my time either in class or in the library. During this period, besides being busy, I received 3 calls from Charlotte. The first call was a month after the semester officially began. Charlotte had gone through various means and finally obtained my number. When a stranger's number appeared on the screen, I had already guessed it was her. On the phone, Charlotte was very emotional. She said she didn't agree to break off the engagement. She said that in her heart, I had always been her husband. Half a minute later, I hung up the phone. The second call was 2 months into the semester. In the midst of a heavy snowfall, Charlotte's tired voice came through. She said she had arranged a house and a job for Kevin and had clearly told him that she wouldn't see him again. That day, I still listened quietly. Charlotte's last call was on Christmas. In the midst of a heavy snowfall, I spoke for the first time. I said, Charlotte, the semester end exam results are out today. I got an A. At the beginning of the semester, I struggled with my studies, learning the language while attending classes and rushing to the lab to keep up with progress. The experiments weren't going well, facing endless failures. No one knew when I would achieve results. Charlotte listened attentively on the other end, her breathing shallow. Finally, I said, but you know what, Charlotte, I'm very happy. I will never confine myself again. Charlotte's voice suddenly choked. Her tired voice echoed. But I miss you. See, her subject was still I. She never cared about my emotional outlet, even in moments of reconciliation. After that call ended, I cried my heart out on the streets of the foreign city. No matter how hard I tried in my past life, I was hysterical, hateful, and regretful, but I never shed tears. I had almost forgotten what it felt like to cry. After wiping away my tears, I began to study even harder. In my second year of the PhD, I made a breakthrough in an experiment, although the path from the experiment to clinical application was still long. Only by persevering could thousands of patients benefit. Every late night, I would look up from the lab and see my peers still buried in their work, feeling an inexplicable drive supporting me. The feeling of fighting for an ideal was truly wonderful. Later, I heard from a classmate that Charlotte had gotten married. Her partner was Kevin. When my classmate explained, carefully considering my feelings, he said, "I heard Charlotte had been preparing for a performance in the city where you're studying. After Kevin found out, he went to cause trouble." I didn't hear the details, but the next day, the two of them were sleeping in the same bed. Charlotte stubbornly refused to agree, but she got pregnant. I didn't respond. In this lifetime, she still entered marriage out of responsibility, as a daughter, as a mother, but she never took on the responsibility of being a wife. At the end of the conversation, my classmate sighed. "When you went to school, I thought leaving Charlotte was your loss. Now I realize, men living their own lives truly shine. Joel, you're something we all admire now." 7 years later, I graduated with my PhD, returning to my homeland with a heap of research achievements. The rest of my life was filled with good times.